Greetings, Deep Divers. It's Maddie from madeupbymaddie.com, bringing you another installment of The Dive. For this week's transformation, our inspiration will be Jean Shrimpton, English supermodel extraordinaire. Model, actress, this stunning beauty graced the covers of numerous fashion magazines, including Vanity Fair, Ladies' Home Journal, and Vogue. She was considered one of the very first supermodels and reportedly one of the highest paid. So let's jump in. And now for the headlines of 1961. The Bay of Pigs, a failed military attack launched by the CIA upon Cuba, took place between April 17th and April 20th, 1961. Around 1,300 Cuban exiles, backed by the U.S. government, invaded the island nation of Cuba, attempting to overthrow the government of dictator Fidel Castro. On May 5th, 1961, Alan Shepard becomes the first American in space, just a month behind Soviet Yuri Gagarin, who became the first human to fly in space. The very first Six Flags amusement park opens on August 1st, 1961 in Arlington, Texas. In world news, the Berlin Wall goes up on August 13th, 1961, dividing East and West Germany. The Berlin Wall was said to be a chilling symbol of the Iron Curtain that divided all of Europe between communism and democracy. Now I'll be sharing the 7 albums I listened to during my week in 1961. Alright, kicking off the week, on Sunday I listened to My Favorite Things by John Coltrane. Playing soprano and tenor saxophone, Coltrane really executed a beautiful jazz album that just effortlessly shifts emotions while still sounding upbeat. The title track is actually a cover from The Sound of Music, which is done perfectly, but it has its own unique twist. The album may look sparse because it only has 4 tracks, but this record closes in at just over 40 minutes. My 2 favorites are My Favorite Things and Summertime. Cannot go wrong with John Coltrane. I don't think he's ever made anything that was like, meh. He's amazing. He's so good. On Monday, I listened to Judy Garland's Judy at Carnegie Hall. This was referred to as the greatest night in show business history. This live performance showcases the strong stage presence and undeniably stellar catalog of Judy Garland. So song after song, she delivers uncanny renditions of a variety of songs, sourcing a lot from her past productions. This was one of Judy Garland's early returns to the business after years of being down and out. You can hear the adulation of the crowd as they just eat her up. My favorites off this one are Puttin' on the Ritz, That's Entertainment, and Chicago. On Tuesday, I listened to Forbidden Fruit by Nina Simone, perhaps my favorite singular artist of the 60s and 70s. Nina really gives it all on her 3rd album. What makes Miss Simone so great is that she blends so many styles of music, from folk to blues, from classical to jazz. It's really hard to pinpoint or pigeonhole exactly what she's delivering at any given moment or on any given album, but lucky for the world, there's really no need to classify it. She really is her own creation, and this shows up on this album and all her others. My favorites off this one, Gin House Blues and Forbidden Fruit. The title track, let me tell you, if you're gonna listen to any song on the album, if you had to pick one, listen to the title track. Nina Simone puts her stamp on this and knocks it out of the park. On Wednesday, I listened to Del Shannon's Runaway with Del Shannon. This is the first album from the Michigan-born rock and roller and spawned the seminal hit classic Runaway. Released in the summer of 1961, the album was said to be rushed in order to capitalize on the single. The creeping synth sounds, the stressed vocals, and the fun lyrical phrasing makes this debut album a knockout. My favorites, Runaway, Daydreams, and his latest Flame, which was actually covered by Elvis Presley shortly after. Alright, and on Thursday and Friday, I listened to a double album by Chubby Checker. It's Pony Time and Let's Twist Again. This was put together in one compilation. Considering this album was 2 albums put together, I decided to take the liberty to give each separate album its own day, and boy, am I glad I did. Let me tell you why. This double album is almost too good. Every song is captivating and such a joyful collection of feel-good music. Just shy of an hour, both albums display the underappreciated talents of a sheer musical genius. My favorites off this, are you ready? Pony Time, The Hully Gully, The Charleston, We Like Birdland, I Could Have Danced All Night, and Peanut Butter. He just had a song styling. He had a way with phrasing, and I might be wrong, but I feel that like nobody talks about him. Nobody really gives him the credit that he deserves. But this album, this set of albums, and the fact that it's 2 and there's not a single track that I would skip. There's got to be over 20 songs on this album, on this double album. I love it! And closing out the week, I listened to Genius Plus Soul Equals Jazz by Ray Charles. A really cool big band sound, this Ray Charles album was a nice finish to an exciting week. Although it's really not my favorite by Ray Charles, this record was smooth and very pleasant to wind down to. And my favorite off this album is I've Got News for You. The first movie I watched was 101 Dalmatians. I know what you're probably saying, you haven't seen this movie. I have, I might have been maybe 4 or 5. So if it was a movie that I've never seen or a movie I really don't remember much about when I saw it, it qualified. So I watched that animated movie. I think I was more familiar with the 1996 version. I think it was 96 with Glenn Close, the live action one. But this one was fantastic. It was great. It was one of the very few animated movies I watched on this challenge, and I'm glad I did. West Side Story. Oh my gosh. Classic. It's amazing. I also saw this movie when I was maybe 7 or 8. It's one of my dad's favorite movies. So I think they chose non-Spanish speakers or like non-Latino people to like play Latinos, which was, I guess, commonplace back then. But you could see and hear it. It was like something's a little off, but it was a good movie. Okay, so now The Hustler. When I first looked at the runtime of the movie, I was a little bit like, oh man, 2 hours. But this movie was freaking amazing. So Paul Newman is the lead role. Piper Laurie is one of his love interests. For those of you who aren't familiar with Piper Laurie, she played Carrie's mom in the 1976 version of Carrie. It's kind of the only version. She also played a part on Twin Peaks. She's amazing. She's such a good actress. So underrated. I really like this movie. Definitely, like I said, movies in the 1960s run a little bit longer, but that's okay because this one did not feel like it dragged. There's a really great storyline with Paul Newman kind of pitted against Jackie Gleason. Paul Newman is this hustler and Jackie Gleason is like this pro, and they duke it out, but it's more than that. Again, no spoiler zone, so watch it because it's really good. And lastly, for 1961, I watched the movie The Innocents. This was a little bit of a slow burn. It's one of the first demonic possession type of movies that deals with that. It's based on a novel that was written at the turn of the century, and Truman Capote was one of the people who adapted it into a screenplay. It's not a movie that's heavy on gore, heavy on violence. It doesn't need to be, and I would just give it a shot.
It's time for the big splash.
All right, for my Big Splash Awards, music, hands down, easy choice, has to go to Chubby Checkers. It's Pony Time, Let's Twist Again, double album. I know it's 2 albums, but again, that is so unlikely that 2 albums put together would yield such an amount of great music that it would win over everything else. There's no filler. It's all good. And the Big Splash Movie Award goes to The Hustler. I loved this film. It was so entertaining. The dialogue was cool, the casting was great. Everything was a hit in this movie. The characters were well developed. Not only that, but they were likable and they were relatable. The story, the acting, everything came together. All hits, no misses. I would definitely recommend you watch The Hustler.
It's the look.
For this look, I used a specific photo of Jean Shrimpton as reference. Even in the photo, I mean, she does have her hair kind of like windswept. I didn't do it with this look, but I added the flip to the hair, very light makeup. I feel looking back, I should have brought a fan to like to match like the wind swept look of the hair, but it's okay. My model Lydia, already super beautiful. Jean Shrimpton had more of a focus on her eye, but everything else was very demure. There's a certain air of class and elegance without being too overly done. So that was the look I was going for. I had a really good time with this one. Had to get really creative with costuming. When it came down to cost, I think I was under my $10 mark. My model's hair was her own. I styled it, but I did not have to purchase any hair. Clothes, again, I think I spent $2 or $3 on the actual garments. Gotta love those dollar days. Again, another popular trend was the bold brow. So the drama was kind of created here. A little bit of a smoked out eye. Not a lot in way of contouring. It wasn't really as big of a trend as it is now. So it gets really tempting sometimes when you're doing makeup in a period to kind of do the standard of what you think is the right way in relation to the time you're in. So it was a little bit of a challenge. It was like a less is more challenge, but it was fun. I had a really good time. My model, beautiful, great to work with. So all in all, this was a really fun experience. Thank you so much for sticking around to the end. If you want, you can always check out my website, madeupbymaddie.com, where you can see my blog, view my portfolio. My site is available in English and in Spanish, and of course you can contact me or book me, as I am a worldwide makeup artist and I would love to be a part of your world. Thank you so much, and I'll see you again next time.